we are going to get strategic. And I don't care if you haven't launched yet or if you're several years into your business, the exercise we're talking through today is what you need to run through at every stage of your business, whether you want to start strong, you want to get unstuck, or you want to just launch to the next level. So if you're ready to find your secret sauce, that thing that's going to skyrocket your sales and give you an unfair advantage over your competition, that's what we're doing today. So get your pencil ready. We are going to do a success strategy session right now. So this is where we're going to map out your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and any threats to your business. This is the quickest way to find opportunities that you can use to grow your business exponentially. You're going to find ways to make your marketing better, to create new products or services that you already have a market for, and all sorts of ways to hit those goals that we talked about earlier. You said you have massive goals. This is how you're going to get to them. So it's more sales faster, which is what we all want, right? So this is a framework that we're going to use to determine where your company stands among the competition and in your marketplace. And it's going to help you create your most powerful strategy to move forward with. So we're going to look at the internal strengths and weaknesses of your company. You can identify areas that you need to work on, as well as those that are really unique and give value to your customers, which is your secret sauce, right? Externally, we're going to look at your competitors as well as market conditions. We're going to look for needs that might not be currently filled for your customers that you might be able to fill. We're going to look at trends that you might want to take advantage of and all sorts of other things. You know, we get so caught up in the everyday running of our business and wearing all the hats and doing all the things that it's really critical to take a step back and have a good look at where we are, what we might be missing, what we want to change, what we want to adapt, and really how to take advantage to level up our business. And I suggest, beyond what we're doing today, that if you're not already doing it, that you start moving forward with your calendar every single week or every 2 weeks on the outside. Book yourself you can call it a CEO day or a business development day. And maybe it's not a whole day, maybe it's a few hours, maybe it's an afternoon, whatever it happens to be, but you need to set aside time to think through your strategies, your marketing strategies, your business strategies, and any kind of business development. Because if you don't, it doesn't happen. And that's how you're going to grow your business, right? And it's hard, especially when you're starting, because there are so many fires to put out. There is so much stuff going on. But you need to set aside that time or you're just never going to get out of that cycle. So set aside a couple of hours, a full day, whatever it happens to be, where you sit down and work through your strategies, your marketing, anything that's going to move the needle and grow your business. That's a little aside here, but it'd be a great opportunity to set that aside in the next few weeks so that you can actually start working on what we're going to talk about today, because it's going to take you a little bit of time to get through all of this. All right, so how do we do this? So I put together a free worksheet for you. The link is in the comments. You can also go to shecorporated.com and just look in the link of the header, and it says SWOT, SWOT. That's what you want to download, and it's right at shecorporated.com, and that'll get you your free worksheet as well. And that's going to have a grid on it that breaks down the types of things that you want to include in each section of this strategy analysis that we're going to do. But we're going to talk through it here as well. So the first one we're going to talk about is your strengths. So you want to make a list, you want to make note of what your company does really well. So what is it that you do better or differently than your competitors? What assets do you have? Like a special process that you use, or property, capital that you own, or maybe you have proprietary software. What assets do you have that give you strength in the market? You also want to look at things like your internal resources that you have, like skilled workers. Maybe you have really efficient processes. Maybe you have low overhead. It gives you a competitive advantage over your competitors. So those are all strengths that you want to look at. And there will be many for your company beyond those, but that just gives you an example of what some of those things might be. Now, the second one you want to look at is your weaknesses. And again, this is an internal factor. So these are things that need improvement, and be really honest with yourself here, because if you can't see it clearly, maybe ask some of your customers, maybe ask some people around you what they would see as weaknesses in your company if you're having a hard time coming up with it, because it's really important that you identify these things. So what needs improvement? What do your competitors do better or differently than you do? What resources are you lacking? What internal resources do you have? Internal weaknesses, sorry, do you have? Like maybe you have low quality training, maybe you have poor morale with your employees, maybe there's gaps in your processes that you struggle with. So those would all be weaknesses that you want to list out. Now your opportunities is the next one that you want to make a list of, and these could be internal or external. So Opportunities are things like changes in the market that would be positive for your company. So, if there's an increasing need, for example, if you were a delivery company over the last 2 years, that was an opportunity in your market, right? All of a sudden, everything needed to be delivered, and you were in the position to do it. Other opportunities could be things like what your competition is doing that you could capitalize on, or if there's a lack of competition, even better, there's an opportunity. Are there markets that are underserved? And we'll talk about this a little bit more after, but this is, people in your marketplace that really are not being served by you or your competitors. Is there a way that you can change your product, change your service to appeal to or serve those markets? Is there technology that you can utilize to improve your efficiency, to reduce your costs, to improve your service? Is there some tech out there? Tech is changing all the time. Look at your processes. Look at where you're spending too much time, or you're replicating efforts. If you're doing things over and over again, these tasks that perhaps could be streamlined by adding some tech in. So have a look at that. And then the last one is, it could be an internal or an external factor. It's the threats. So this is something like if the market is trending away from your product or service. If you have a coal mine, for example, that would be an example of the market trending away from your product or service, right? Something that, so you need to change things up. You need to, change your business model. Um, Threats, unfortunately, are something that we don't have a lot of control over the actual threat, but we do have control over how we respond to that threat, right? You can't help it if the world's energy needs are changing, but you can change how your company responds to that. So, is there new competition arriving in your market? Again, you don't have control over that. That's a threat, but you do need to respond to it. Are there changing regulations that are going to affect your company or your customers in a negative way? Is there negative media coverage that's going to affect you? Those are all threats. Again, they're things that you don't really have control over the actual threat, but you do need to address it within your company. So get that all on paper. You're going to want to write down your answers for each of those 4 parts. And again, in that workbook, it's going to walk you through it so that it makes it simple. The examples that I've given you may not apply exactly to your business, and there may be many, many others that do apply that I didn't touch on, but that gives you an idea of what each section is going to be. So go through each section and fill it out as best it applies to your specific situation. And then the next part is really the most important part, and that's how you act on that analysis. Because once you've got that all down on paper, if you don't do anything with it, it's not going to make any kind of difference in your business. So once you've completed your analysis, you need to go through all of those answers and act on them. So the first one is the easiest one to figure out the steps for, because it's your strengths. And essentially, you're already doing them. So really, it's just a do more of what you're already good at scenario, right? So if your strength was excellent customer service, then you want to keep your staff engaged and motivated. You want to keep the systems in place for trainings or processes that have gotten you where you are, and improve them wherever possible, right? So have a look at your strengths and really just do more of what you're already good at. And the other thing you're going to want to do with these strengths is, once you've identified them, start using those. You can use those in your marketing. If you've got a killer, reputation for customer service, or if you've got a great, I don't know, return policy or whatever it happens to be, if it's something that's going to appeal to your customers, I mean, clearly it does because they like it and they keep coming back, then see if you can use that in your marketing. See how you can play on that and build that up and use that. So that's your strengths. Number 2 is your weaknesses. And with weaknesses, really, you just want to minimize them. So you want to act on those weaknesses that you identified. And it's just as important as the strengths. It's a little more challenging, but you really want to have a good look at those weaknesses and see which ones you can correct. And if you can't correct it, how do you compensate for it? So I'll give you this example. Let's say you owned a family pizza restaurant, a small family-owned pizza restaurant. And let's say one of the weaknesses that you identified is that your competitors, who are mostly the large chains, have a delivery service. It's pretty standard, right? Now, you may not ever be able to afford to have full-time delivery drivers on, but how do you compensate for that weakness if you can't correct it? Well, maybe you offer something extra with all takeout orders that incentivizes them to come and pick up their order. Or maybe you make it really easy for your customers to pick up their orders with a curbside service or a reserved parking rate in front of the front doors. So there are ways that you can address those weaknesses even if you can't actually completely change them. And that's what you want to look for in your business. All right. And then opportunities, really you want to seize the opportunities. So the opportunity section of the analysis is the part that always gets me the most excited, because this is where you're going to find things like holes in the market and opportunities to grow market segments, and just, opportunities to really move the needle, and often with some very, very small changes. So have a look at those opportunities on your list and then figure out how you can take advantage of them. So again, I'll give you an example. Let's say you are producing a organic baby food and you noticed that there's a big demand increase for organic food in the markets that you're not already serving. So there's an opportunity to figure out how to get in front of that market, or find a way to make your product appeal to that new market with maybe a special line of products, or maybe marketing that will appeal specifically to them, right? That speaks more their language, that has the kind of packaging that they'll like. So that's an opportunity. You're already making this baby food. You don't even have to necessarily change the formulation, but you identify, okay, I'm selling to all of these people, but for some reason, these people over here aren't buying it and they like organic stuff. So why aren't they buying it? So you figure that out. And then you may not even need to change your product. Maybe you just change your marketing. Maybe you just change what stores it's in. These are great opportunities where you may not have to make even big changes, and you can make a big shift in your sales and your opportunities. So again, that's going to apply specifically to your business in a different way, but that's an example of how you can look at an underserved market segment and make a small change in your company and potentially be able to reach that market and have a huge opportunity. So number 3 was opportunities, seize the opportunities. And the last one was the threats. And really all you can do here is mitigate the threats. You can't control them. They are beyond your control. It's often the most difficult part of the analysis because you have limited control over them, but they should be a top priority responding to them. So even if they seem out of your control, you need to address the changes that are in your control in order to address each of those threats. So I'll give you an example with this one as well. Let's say you have a clothing line, and a threat on your list is that your supply chain for the fabric that you use is unreliable because of shipping issues from overseas. And that's a very real problem right now, is supply chain and shipping issues. So you can't do anything about the shipping delays. You could look at sourcing from a more local supplier, perhaps, or maybe you add a new collection to your clothing line and you have different fabric sourced from somewhere else. That's going to diversify your supply chain. So if one end gets cut off, you have another line with another supply chain that you can still sell. So that's an example of how you can take a threat that you don't really have control over, but you can mitigate it within your business. So this is one exercise that is really going to set you up for success, and it's going to give you some insight into opportunities that can give your business the edge that it needs to be a success right out of the gate. Or if you're already established, it's going to get you growing and scaling faster if you're stuck and you're ready to grow. So get the download if you haven't got it yet. It's sheetcorporated.com. Look in the header. Again, there's a link in the header that says, under the free downloads, it says SWOT, SWOT. And then you can do your analysis and you can really see what opportunities are waiting for you out there to really pour some rocket fuel on your sales.